face.
Steve Schmidt, he's talking about a trial. I think that the next phase is more likely to yield a damn right I called the code red than it is some sort of exculpatory piece of evidence against Donald Trump.
I think you're right about that. I think that the conduct from what we know about the testimony is pretty clear. He asked the president of Ukraine to launch an investigation on a political opponent, thus interfering in the election. And if you can do that to the former vice president of the United States, you can do it to every American. It's utterly lawless. And so this is what the impeachment provisions in the Constitution were written for. If you go and you read Federalist 65 and 66, authored by Alexander Hamilton, he writes specifically and directly about the type of president envisioning sometime in the future that we have now in office. So this is a very serious matter. It's a very grave moment. This will cause even worse division in the country, and it's hard to imagine we could be more divided. I do think that one of the important things that as this goes forward, and I think Nancy Pelosi recognizes this, Donald Trump's fiercest critics must be his strongest defenders with regard to his due process rights. This is a very, very serious, grave matter for the country. And this has to be conducted with absolute, total fairness. The politics, as much as is possible, has to be kept out of it. And the question has to be put forward, does the oath that these members took to the Constitution have any meaning? There's a couple of things that have been stripped away from our politics in this era, and it's the sense that there's duty and there's obligation. And defending the Constitution, which you swore an oath to do, may mean that some members lose their seats. But if we are to continue the American experiment, to be a constitutional republic that enters its third century of existence, what we have to face here is the possibility that there are members in Congress who believe a president can do whatever he wants. And if, in fact, what happened is what we all think happened, and that does not meet the criterion for impeachment, what possible thing could he do that would? And I think that's an important question.
Do you really think that's an open question?
I do.
I mean, don't you think Jim Jordan and the Republicans who are most vocal and front and center have answered your question already? They believe, I mean, the White House released all this evidence. These weren't leaks from the deep state. This was a summary of a call the White House put out. I mean, do you feel suspense about which way the Republican Party will go?
I feel no suspense about how Jim Jordan will go. Yeah. Right? I hope that there are members who understand their obligation. This country is not built on a cult of personality. When a member of Congress is sworn in, they don't swear an oath to the head of the Republican Party or to Donald Trump. When a military officer takes their commission, they swear to defend the Constitution of the United States. And that's what the question is. And so what hangs over this is the larger point. If this doesn't meet the standard, what possibly could? Or do you believe, which is a profound departure from the history of the country, the president can do whatever he or she likes to do? And if the answer to that question is in the affirmative, we don't live in the American Republic that existed from 1787 until 2017. It's a different type of country. And that's why this is such a grave day, because the question that's coming is one of the most important questions that the country has ever faced.
Garrett, I know you have some breaking news, but let me ask you to get to that, but also just pick up this thread. I mean, I think there are Democrats who, at least privately, worry that the answer to Steve's question is we live in exactly the kind of country where Donald Trump can do whatever he wants.
There's very little evidence to the contrary up until this point. I mean, you have to think that this vote today in the House was one of the first really affirmative checks on this president by either house of Congress. I mean, there's been some resolutions passed pushing back on various, policy specifics and things like that. But of all the issues that we've covered in the time of the Trump presidency, questions about emoluments, about behavior, about campaign finance irregularities, I mean, pick your issue. There's not been more than sort of some verbal hemming and hawing. So I guess I line up with you a little bit on that, Nicole, that, if there's going to be a bunch of Federalist Papers reading Republican members marching out here to vote for articles of impeachment, we've not seen any evidence of that so far. Now, as to the news going on, I can tell you that Tim Morrison has just wrapped up his day on Capitol Hill. He's on his way out the door right now. We're starting to learn a little bit more about his